looks pretty fierce. So the chapter that I thought we would start with is chapter 2. It's called A Devious Line to Man. Let's start. It is 3,500 million years before man will appear, a restless, deep blue sea, marked only by occasional ripples of iridescence, rolls over 2/3 of the planet. The remainder consists of a single gigantic continent, all brownish rock, glinting here and there with patches of bright minerals. For the most part, the rock lies flat and naked, but in some areas, chains of low mountain ranges rise up and extend for 1,000 miles or more. Elsewhere, ragged trenches gape across the stony plain. The forbidding surface is in a continual torment. Almost everywhere volcanic cones and fissures spout dust and vapour, or gush crimson rivers of lava that soon harden into blackness. The climate, uniformly tropical and humid, is marked by local fogs, clouds, rain and lightning storms. Wind and waves scour and plough the land. Pale lakes, left by the rains, turn brown with eroded fragments of rock on their way to becoming soil. A visitor from space would hear a never-ending babble of sounds, the rustle of moving air and the roar of storms, the wash of waves and tides, muffled grindings and explosions, as the earth's crust cools and warms with the cycle of night and day. What he would not hear or see is any sign of life upon the planet. The opaque sea is empty of life. The land shows no trace of green. There is no breathable free oxygen in the atmosphere, which consists mainly of water vapour, hydrogen and two poisonous gases, ammonia and methane. These same active chemicals dissolve and bubble in the waters of puddles and seas. A pitiless stream of ultraviolet radiation, inimical to life, pours in upon the planet from the sun basic ingredients of the organic substances making up all living things. In a modern laboratory, the four chemicals that filled the Earth's early atmosphere. And seas, water, hydrogen, ammonia and methane can be made to rearrange their constituent elements to produce the organic materials of life. The experiment is a surprisingly simple one. The mixture is merely heated and exposed to some form of energy, electricity or radiation, an experiment that must have taken place countless times during the Earth's first 1,000,000,000 years. The materials for it were there, in the atmosphere and the water, and so was the energy. There was electricity in the lightning that ripped through the sky. There was radiation in the ultraviolet waves that poured from the sun, and there was heat in the fiery volcanoes that erupted in every part of the Earth's crust. Gradually, the primitive Earth's energy and raw materials must have generated the stuff of which life is made, notably the organic compounds called amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins and also of DNA, the carrier of hereditary patterns for all living things. The sea, particularly, became rich in these materials. Modern researchers have called the primitive sea a kind of organic soup, and it was in the sea that the next step took place, at a turning point some 3,500 million years ago. Until this point, the raw materials for life had accumulated, but there was as yet no life. Then, the great forces of natural energy made some of the available materials join together into new and still more complex substances. Some of these substances certain microscopic forms began to sustain themselves by combining oxygen with living material from plants or from other forms like themselves. These oxygen-breathing animals, the earliest ancestors of man, soon swarmed in the sea, feeding upon plants and upon one another. From minute one-celled blobs, they developed in a fairly short time into highly specialised creatures. Some were mobile and could propel themselves through the water with tiny, whip-like tails. Others floated passively or anchored themselves to undersea slopes. Eventually, they became sponges, jellyfish, worms, and coral. In a few rare cases, these ancient forms of life have left massive records of their existence. The microscopic blue-green algae, the first plants to evolve, trapped bits of sediment and, layer by layer, built up huge structures called stromatolites, which still exist in smaller versions along the Florida coast. Some very ancient stromatolites resembled nothing so much as upside-down ice cream cones, except that these cones towered as high as 50 feet and were 30 feet wide at the base. 1,000 million years ago, they loomed above the silent floor of the sea in greenish-white sand and algae forests that stretched for many hundreds of miles without a break. The remains of stromatolites, however, are among the few relics of this ancient time. Most plants and animals living then had soft bodies without the bones, shells and stems that form fossils. Only with the dawn of another era would the fossil record become abundant and comparatively easy to read. lifestyles different from those in the deeper waters of subdued life and even temperatures. In the cold depths of the sea, there were creatures that adapted to a terrific pressures and also glowed in the dark. On the sea floor, others crept about in the soft detritus that drifted down from above. Some Ordovician organisms such as corals, clams, starfish and sea urchins are still familiar to us in modern times. Others would seem vaguely familiar but disturbingly different in size or appearance. There was, for example, the first true giant of the sea, the nautiloid, a mollusk related to a squid. But the nautiloid was protected by a gigantic hard shell that sometimes grew to a length of 15 feet. Still other animals were insignificant within the Ordovician Sea, but they represented potent omens of the shape of things to come. Foremost among them were a few strange small fish. They were the first animals to possess backbones, the vertebrate structure that today supports all the higher animals, including man. Now down here, in this image, this is the terror of the sea in the Silurian period, 410 million years ago. A 6-foot water scorpion called a Eurypterid paddles with tail and hind limbs as it stretches in front. Its front claws towards its prey. A school of armour-plated but jawless fish called Bagenia up here. The fleeing fish swing upwards their tails, lower lobes helping them dart to the surface. In the Silurian period which followed the Ordovician, fish began to appear in greater numbers, but they were not particularly impressive. These early fish, called ostrocoderms, seldom grew to more than a foot in length. They had no jaws, only toothless mouths with which they sucked up nutrients from the bottom mud, and instead of true bird fins, they grew simple flaps of tissue. The ostrocoderm's skin thickened into a protective suit of heavy, bony armour, and they needed it badly. Relatively harmless creatures such as trilobites and nautiloids were on the decline. Powerful and vicious predators were on the rise. Most dangerous of all were the Eurypterids, or water scorpions, believed to be ancestors of modern land scorpions. An 8-inch modern scorpion is fearsome enough, but its ancestor, the Eurypterid, was the largest animal of the Silurian world. As long as 6 feet with a strong paddle-like tail. Lengthy claws, somewhat like those of a lobster, a 6-foot lobster that is, and saw-like mouth existence is meagre, and they seem at best to have been no more than modest shrub-like affairs. But the scientists do know that, in a curious way, the two harbingers are related. During the Devonian period which followed the Silurian, the destinies of the first jawed fish and the first land plants proved to be intertwined. Descendants of the plants would become the world's first forests. Certain descendants of the fish would become animals that lived in these forests. This new turning point in the history of life on Earth was accomplished by great upheavals in the Earth itself. As the Silurian period drew to its close and the Devonian opened, the crust of the Earth crumbled repeatedly and buckled. Slowly the land was lifted upwards. Here and there, new mountain ranges were formed. Correspondingly, the waters of the Earth, and particularly the waters of inland seas, advanced and receded several times. Behind the receding waters were left thick layers of black mud, rich in organic materials that had been accumulating over a period of millions of years, and that now were becoming exposed to air and sun. Never before had the world offered such an opportunity for life, an opportunity as promising and potentially fruitful as that of the primeval sea. In the Devonian period, that opportunity was seized and exploited. On the shores of estuaries and lakes, in tidal marshlands, wherever the rich mud had been left, plants began to spring up. At first, their foothold was slender. Seaweeds took hold on soil, periodically washed by water, then somehow survived the final ebb of the waters that had nourished them. Reproduction away from the protection of water was also chancy. These early plants formed no seeds, but had to rely on spores, a rather clumsy adaptation to life on land. A series of complex steps, all taking place only in water or on very wet land, is required to produce new plants from spores. In the presence of moisture, the spores break open to develop intermediate plant forms that are called gametophytes. These gametophytes grow and produce male and female cells. The male cells are mobile, and if one swims along a film of water to a female cell, fertilization will take place, but only if fertilization occurs when nutrients are available. Can a new generation of spore-bearing plants be born? Compared to life within the sea, where nutrient-laden waters washed every inch of a plant continuously, life on dry land was hard for plants at first, but land life had its advantages too. If it offered less water, it provided more sunlight, the driving force of the photosynthetic process that sustains all green plants. Early Devonian plants were small, leafless things, inefficient in their use of sunlight, the ancestors of horsetails, leafless shrubs and ferns, but later ones grew true leaves, providing a wider surface to absorb more sunlight. Simple, slender leaves to begin with, then broad, true leaves, as the simple ones fused with branches, because a plant taller and larger than its near neighbours could catch more sunlight. The plants began to grow big and high, and because bigger plants have a special problem of transporting water and nutrients to all parts of their stems and leaves, they developed systems of tubes to circulate moisture and sap. At the same time, new types of root systems worms probe the soil.